I spent a day in Winchester, bought some records, visited some tourist attractions, and went to a gig. Let me tell you about it. Ahoy hoy everybody, and welcome to this vlog. So this is going to be similar in style to my London vlogs. Only thing is, apart from two pictures, I think I've got nothing to show you visually other than the records I bought. But I'm just going to sort of tell you about my day in Winchester, which I hope you find interesting. So yeah, I booked the day tickets were announced to go and see Danny Baker on the third of his tours at Last a Sausage Sandwich Game Live. More of which later. But because I was due, it was Thursday evening, the 9th of February. That was a day I was rotated to be working on a late shift. So I had to book the day off so that I could go to the gig. Decided to, because it's February and I've not had a break since before Christmas, but I'd book a few days anyway. But decided also that I would take advantage of having the day to actually go to Winchester and, as I say, be a tourist and check out the record availability. Although Winchester is only 45 minutes up the road from me, it's not somewhere I tend to go. We've recently sort of discovered the Theatre Royal there and been to a couple of gigs, both Count Arthur Strong ones actually, and because that was the nearest place he was playing, and like the venue and it's easy to park, etc. So it's somewhere we've sort of been looking at more. We're going there again later this year to see Tim Vine. But it's not a place I've visited since I was a schoolboy. Definitely did a school trip around the cathedral and the sort of local area, pointing out specific historical points of interest. And whenever the anniversary of the Doomsday Book was, 1986, I think it must have been, around then, they had an exhibition, because it started in Winchester. They had an exhibition in Winchester that my mum took me and my best friend to. But I don't think I've been since. If I have, I certainly don't remember. What's that, Will? Okay. So, yeah, wanted to sort of take advantage and go to Winchester. As I say, it's only 45 minutes down the road, so I sort of did what I had to do in the morning and then left when I was ready. And I got there just before noon. It was probably about 2:45, something like that. Parked up in the car park that I would normally use for the theatre anyway, and paid for parking. And then thought, right, I'll do record shopping first, get that done and out of the way, and then I can just do touristy bits and wander around. So I knew that there should be a market stall there with records. He attends there Thursdays, Fridays and Saturdays, weather permitting, and it was a decent day. That there was an Oxfam specific books and music type shop. A record shop, Elephant Records, that specialised in new vinyl, didn't sell pre-loved. And then a number of other lesser charity shops, thanks to people like Dale and Mike. And I can't remember who the other one who commented was. I apologise. I'll pop you on the screen. But who responded when I sort of asked. So I sort of knew what I was looking out for. On my way into the high street, or along the high street towards the market area, I did find a couple of charity shops. But I went in. First one I went in was a Dog's Trust. They had a couple of albums that I would have got if they were at charity shop prices, but they weren't. They had Human League Love Unlimited Orchestra, or whatever it's called, for black cover. That was okay. I think that was only $1.99, so I possibly would have picked that up. But then they had Moody Blues Days of Future Past, but they wanted £8 for it. And there was a Gordon Giltrap one, which I don't really know his music at all. I just know the name. But if it was, you know, £1 or £2, I would have given it a try. But I think they wanted like £14 for it or something stupid like that. So I didn't even look at the quality of a Human League one, because I thought, well, if they only want £1.99 for that, yet they're charging proper prices for other stuff, it's probably not worth picking up. So I gave up on that and left there. And then, yeah, I found a couple more, I think, before I got to the market stall. And again, there's just nothing. Those that did have vinyl, was nothing I wanted. And the CDs and DVDs and Blu-rays, again, nothing I wanted. So I'm just trying to remember where something happened. I think it was in one of those. It might have been a bit later. But one of them did have a copy of Vanessa Paradis' Be My Baby, which is one of my all-time favourite songs. I have the album on CD that it comes from. But I thought, oh, 7-inch single of that, have that. Pulled it out, and it was just terrible condition. Massive, dirty brown scuff on it. You know, it was both a scuff and a stain. It was horrible. And I thought, no, not doing that. Which was a shame. But I carried on and found the market stall. And so it was a square market stall with, I think it was 4 or 5 tubs on each side. And at 2 of the sides, they went back. Was it 2 deep or 3 deep? 2 deep. No, 3 deep, I think. 3 deep. And then on the either end, they were just 1 deep. And sort of the front 2 on one side and the front on one of the other sides was all, or pretty much all, £5 each, 3 for £12. And I started flicking through, and I thought, oh, there's actually some decent stuff in these. You know, it's not just the cheap rubbish. There's lots of the sort of 80s Paul McCartney albums, stuff of that calibre. So any noise, it's just Willow, don't worry. And, you know, some Paul Simon albums and stuff like that. Stuff that, you know, I would happily pay more than that for elsewhere. So I was thinking, oh, you know, I could put together a few albums here that I would like. But nothing that screamed initially, yeah, I've got to get that. Then on about the 4th one I looked in, I found an album that I thought, oh yeah, I will have that. And then in one of the other bins, I found again you'll see, Prince-related album that I thought, oh yeah, definitely have that. And then I thought, well, there's not really enough there that I'm desperate for to make up more than 3, but I'll make up a 3, obviously, to take advantage of a bargain. And I can't even remember what the 3rd one I picked up was, but we'll see in a minute. But then I went round to the more traditional, you know, alphabeticalised sections, and almost straight away started finding stuff I needed, which you'll see. Prices, they're a bit on the high side. Certainly, if it wasn't stuff that I hadn't seen before, I would have hesitated about picking them up. I know I've overpaid on most of what I bought, if you see what I mean, but not enough that it put me off buying them. And he gave me a discount as well. He also had one side that was in categories. So that was, you know, folk, reggae, blues, jazz. Well, blues and jazz was together, I think. And then some new arrivals bins. And then the other side was groups, you know, so Beatles all together, or Beatles and related all together, etc., etc. And I went through every record on the stall, and this is what I picked up anyway. As I say, he did end up giving me a discount, so I will talk you through that. So the 3 cheapies, so these were £5 each, 3 for £12. The first one that made me instantly think, right, I'm definitely buying some of these, was Def Leppard's Hysteria. really clean copy, sleeve-wise. Inner sleeves in decent enough condition as well. And I checked all the vinyl on these. I didn't check them on the dearer ones because I figured, well, if these ones, if the cheap stuff is good, then the more expensive stuff should be as well. You know, a couple of light marks, but nothing that should affect play. But this is an original 87, whenever it was. Flimsy vinyl pressing. I don't know. So I've got this on cassette somewhere up in the loft, I think. Never got round to getting it on CD. I don't know if these are truncated versions of the songs, because I seem to recall it was a fairly long album. So it's either just going to be squeezed on and not great sound quality, or they're going to be truncated versions. I don't know, but it will certainly do for now for it, especially at the price I ended up paying. The Prince-related one was Wendy and Lisa's Eroica. So I have this on CD, and I've sort of been refraining from getting Wendy and Lisa on vinyl, but at this price, again, I wasn't going to resist. It's dirty, as in dust and little bits of stuff you can see there, but it's all stuff that's going to clean off really easily. You know, other than that, it's nothing major that's going to cause any problems. I mean, yeah, there was a few odd albums that I was thinking, oh, well, might go for that, might go for that, might go for that. Mainly sort of funk and soul ones of artists that I'm vaguely aware of but have never explored. And that's what I did in the end. I picked up Brass Construction 2 by Brass Construction. Got a nice bit of funk. Give it a go. I'm sure it'll be something I enjoy. So yeah, those were meant to be free for £12. He let me have the three of those for a tenner. So that was $3.33 each. And then yeah, another 6 titles I picked up in the normal racks. Pleased with this find because I've never seen this on vinyl before. Harry Nilsson's That's the Way It Is. £15. But again, he did me a deal on these, which I'll explain at the end. This has got Sail Away on it. Cover of Just One Look and Baby I'm Yours in a medley. So I have the Nilsson RCA album CD box set, so I have everything on CD, but I'm also getting everything on vinyl, and it's becoming increasingly rare that I find a vinyl that I don't already have from him. So this was, yeah, that's mint. Yeah, so this was nice that I did find one that I didn't already have. I sort of had to check on Discogs just to double check that I didn't. Then, apart from Endless Wire, which I presume is available on vinyl somehow, but I need to sort of look into that. This sort of completes The Who for me. This is one I was missing, a quick one. I've sort of Endless Wire, the later ones I don't tend to count, if that makes sense. This is a mono pressing. You know, it can't be an original. No, Universal Music Catalogue on it, so it's a reissue. For, I can't remember if I said £20. Yeah, this is modern. Possibly even the one that came out last year, I think it was. But 180 gram vinyl by the feels of it. Very clean. Yeah, it's just one I've been looking out for and for some reason have never found, so was sorely tempted to get the reissue when it did come out. That's that dealt with now anyway. A couple of Prince ones. Again, definitely overpaid on this really, but I haven't seen it since it was originally out. So this is for £20. Cream remixes. My Prince and me MPG. So when the Cream, well, originally Get Off and then Cream both had maxi singles. He did that a lot around this time. There's also one from New Power Generation from the previous album, Graffiti Bridge, which was basically lots of variations on the track, often formed into completely different and new songs with just a various hint of Cream involved, or Get Off in case of that one. So it was released as a maxi single. I'm not entirely sure of the chronology, so this might be wrong, but I think it's right. It was released as a maxi single in the States. Then it was released over here just normally, and then they reissued the maxi single, but they called it Cream Remixes instead. And this is that. So I have the maxi single, which has got a purple cover. I'm not going to climb up and get it. So I have all these on vinyl, but I just don't have the UK yellow-sleeved release of it. That'll be Mr. Amazon. I lied, that was Miss Amazon. Or Ms, or however they want to be gendered. But anyway, it wasn't Mr. Amazon, is the point I'm making. Yeah, so for the collection, I grabbed this. Yeah, again, perfect. On Paisley Park. And then the other thing, on another day I might have left it behind because I'm not crazy about these things, but it looked so nice that I couldn't resist. So this is one of those interview picture disc things. Again, £20. Again, the quality of it looked so good. Prince in Conference. This is normally the 1986, I think it was, interview he did for MTV. Might have been 85. It might not be. It might be one of a couple of other interviews from around that time, but he didn't do many interviews, so I've almost certainly already got the interview on both CD and vinyl. But I don't have this disc, so sod it. And then a couple of John Martins that I didn't already have. Again, £20. This is Bless the Weather. So this is from 1971. On Island. Yeah. I think it's probably a later reissue. But yeah, again, vinyl is perfect. You know, so yes, it is a bit expensive, but so far the quality's been there as well. And this next one is a little bit interesting. So this is John Martin live at Leeds. This was also £20. So this was originally released in 1975, so it is as old as me. But it was only available via mail order directly with John, and most of them came signed by either him or him and Beverly Martin, and they were hand numbered on the back. Now, this is 99.9% certain the 1976 reissue, which came out on Island. Island originally didn't want to release it, but what I find interesting is that it still says on the bottom limited edition number, but there's no number there. There is a little it's possible that there was one on a sticker and the sticker's come off, because there is a little rectangle there. So it's either textured differently so that they could write the number on. I don't know if you can make that out. Or a sticker's been there and it's been peeled off. I'm not sure. But if it is, I mean, it definitely says Island. You know, it's got an Island catalogue number. And it says, you know, produced Island Records on the disc itself. No clues there. There's a few light marks on this. You know, very light. Certainly shouldn't affect the plate at all. But it's just sort of a plain white label. Which is what make, but you know, given it's got the Island Records details on there, I'm pretty certain it's a 76 reissue, not a 75 original. It's just that little bit about the limited edition that's putting me off. But anyway, that's what I bought from him. Very nice. We had a little chat and he was very friendly. And yeah, so these bits, these 6, came to 115, I think, 20, 40, 60, 80, 115. He let me have them for 100. So a reasonable discount there as well. Plus, you know, a couple of quid he knocked off the cheapy stuff. So I was pleased with all that. Went exploring further, found a couple more charity shops. Again, nothing that I wanted. I was just sort of, you know, wandering around trying to find stuff rather than actively looking for specific shops, if you see what I mean. And I stumbled across HMV, and I haven't been in an HMV. Well, I went in with Craig back in October when he was down, but didn't pick anything up in HMV there. But did this time. They've got an offer on at the moment. A lot of their vinyl, not all of it, but a lot of their vinyl. It's 2 for 40 or 3 for 55, which works out, you know, for a new record, just, you know, £18.33 for a new record is decent price. So I decided to take advantage, and then I picked up an extra thing as well, which you will see in a second. But in the 3 for 55s, so these are all obviously brand new sealed. First thing I picked up was After All the Decline and Fall of the British Empire, 50th anniversary 2LP set by the Kinks. So this would normally be $22.99. So in the deal, I saved myself £4.66. So let's get into this. In fact, it's already open somehow. Slightly dented there, but that's not an issue. So we've got a nice booklet. First album, Pie. And the second. So I'm getting there with the Kinks now. There's also Lola or Power Man. What was it? Lola versus Power Man and the Money Go Round Part 1, which again would have been $22.99. So again, I saved myself $4.66. So it's just a single disc. Again, this is the 50th anniversary reissue version. booklet. And again on the pie. And a couple of Smiths. So this would have been $21.99, so slightly less of a saving. This is for debut. So I have Strange Ways and I have Hatful of Hollow. And I've been looking out for the others at the right price because I loved both of those. As I've discussed elsewhere, Smiths were a band I largely ignored as a youth. They were a bit of a joke band because of Morrissey's antics when I was growing up, you know, for people my age. So I'd largely dismissed them and regret that now. Mrs. Meaty's Murder, again, would have been $21.99. So I think I Need the Queen is Dead. And then I want to get the Loudon Bombs. I think that sort of covers all the material, doesn't it? Or certainly all the studio material. If I've got all of those, correct me if I'm wrong. Yeah, I did check that, didn't I? Yeah. And then from the reissues that came out last year before, 2020, they've reissued a number of live Peter Gabriel albums. And this is Live in Athens 1987, 2 LP, 180 gram vinyl, 33 and a third RPM half-speed remaster, includes high-res download code. So this would have been $22.99. So this is on the So tour, I believe. And then the sixth one I picked up in the 3 for 55 is actually a recent album that I had already decided I was going to buy, assuming HMV had it, if you see what I mean, which I knew they would. The fact that it was part of the deal was just an added bonus. And that is Prioritise Pleasure by Self Esteem. I really love the 345. My local radio station, Wave 105, have been playing that a lot lately. Her voice on it reminds me so much of Nicola Roberts's, which is a good thing as far as I'm concerned. So yeah, I really like that. I like her as a person when I've seen her on stuff like House of Games and Taskmaster and things like that. And she's supporting Blur when I see them at Wembley later this year. So also wanted to sort of familiarise myself with her work in advance of that. Quite a dirty record, actually. I don't know if it's going to show. Yeah, you can just see sort of, around there. Oh, you might have been able to see it anyway. Sort of streaks. Edit point. Mum's just got back from a dentist, so just catching up with her. Yeah, so looking forward to listening to that. So yeah, that's the 6 I picked up at 3 for 55. But then I bit the bullet. I've sort of been after this, or contemplating this for a while. This is the 4 LP version of the Super Deluxe reissue of Prince's 1999 album. So when this came out, it came out as CD box set, which is what I already have. The Super Deluxe vinyl box set, which I think is something like 10 discs, Sorry, just peeling my security thing off. Which I wish I'd picked up at the time, but it was just before I was really getting back into vinyl, so didn't, and now it's gone out of print and demands silly money. Then just the album remastered on vinyl, and then this, which is the album. It's a double album, so that's 2 discs, and then 3 and 4 are the promo mixes and the B-sides remastered. So these are all the 7-inch edits and promo mixes and 12 inches and B-sides that were on a separate disc in the deluxe box set. So in lieu of the fact that, barring either a reissue of it or finding a bargain, I'm unlikely to get the Super Deluxe or coming into a load of money. I thought, sod it, it's about time I got this. So it was $54.99, which I didn't think was too bad. And there's the hype for it. Okay, nice. Foiled purple box, lift off lid. We have download code. And then we have disc 1, which is disc 1 of the album, just on black vinyl. The album itself has had a reissue on purple vinyl and also on white vinyl with, sorry, clear vinyl with white wisps in it, which was either Target or Walmart exclusive. Disc 2 is the second disc of the album. Strangely, 1999 is an album I don't own many copies of on vinyl. In fact, this is only the second one that I've bought. It was one of the first albums I bought on vinyl, but that was the 2016, I think, reissue, which hadn't been remastered or anything. It was just a vinyl reissue. And then, but I've never bought a original or early 80s pressing. I have the Record Store Day 1 disc version. I forgot about that. But this is of a full version. This is only the second copy I have on vinyl. So that's B-sides and 7 inches, disc 1. And disc 2. So yeah, glad to have finally picked that up. After that I found the Oxfam, and I went in and up the stairs to the music section. They had quite a decent music section, certainly bigger than Fairham's one, and they were nicely compartmentalised and alphabetised, etc. The singles, they had quite a lot of singles there. I just looked to see if they had any Prince ones, which they didn't. I didn't go through all the singles, but I went through all the albums. I nearly bought 2. There was a Melanie album, The Good Book, that I don't already have. And then an Andreas Vollander, I think that's how you say his name, album. So he's a European classical musician. My mind has gone blank as to what instrument he plays. But anyway, Prince used to use his music before gigs, or in the case of a Love Sexy tour, in between acts. I picked up one of his albums a couple of years ago from a slice of vinyl. It was okay, you know, sort of good background music. So I think it was only $1.99, so I was going to pick that one up as well. But then when I had a look at the Melanie album, there was just 2 scratches on it, and you could feel the scratches. So I thought, no, I'm sure I'll get another copy of this at another time. So I left that behind and therefore didn't bother with the Andreas Vollander one. But they had some interesting stuff, you know, as well as more usual charity shop fodder. They had Hey Jude album from the States, which was 60 quid, I think it was. They had a mono hard. Was it Hard Day's Night? No, mono with the Beatles. Uh, which for some reason, I don't know if somebody was hiding it so that nobody else would buy it, but it was in the spoken word section, and they had £150 on that, which might be what it's worth, but seems a bit steep to me. But obviously I wasn't going to buy anything like that. But they had a nice mixture of proper rarities and normal charity shop stuff. But I ended up not buying anything in there. I then found Elephant Records, and I was going to go in and have a look. I wasn't expecting really to find anything in there that I wanted. They apparently specialise in new vinyl, although they do. I read one place that they do have some pre-loved, but just sort of one little rack. But they also don't really deal in mainstream music. It's a lot more obscure music, which isn't overly my bag. There's bits and I'm willing to explore, but I'm more inclined to pick up more mainstream acts. So I wasn't really expecting to find anything in there anyway. But then when I went up to it, it looked closed. It was really, really dark in there. There was a bloke stood in there at the counter, and he sort of glanced up at me and then glanced down again. And it just felt so uninviting, whether it was open or not, that I didn't want to go in there. So I didn't. So yeah, didn't go in Elephant Records. That was pretty much, shopping-wise, everything got that I wanted. So I headed back to the car and dumped my stuff. I realise this video is already long. From now on in, I'm just going to be talking about the touristy bits and then the gig. If you're not interested in any of that, feel free to go. I'll see you on another video. If you're just interested in the Danny Baker show, I'll put a timestamp up as to when you need to skip forward to. But if you're interested in the sort of touristy bits, this is it. So yeah, went back to the car and dumped the records. I thought, right, let's do the cathedral. So wandered down to the cathedral. Nice slow walk around the outside of it and headed to the front. And first thing I saw was a £10 entry. I've got this thing. I don't think you should charge to go into a church. They do say on the sign, if you're just going in to pray or for quiet reflection, then it is free. But how they police that, I don't know. And that's not what I was going in for anyway, because I don't believe in all that stuff. Well, quiet reflection, obviously, I believe in, but I don't believe in praying. So I nearly thought, I'm not paying. I thought, I've got nothing else to do. I've come here to do this. I might as well pay the £10 and go in. So I went in and paid the £10. They would do regular guided tours. I think they're probably volunteers. But you just sort of wait, and then every few minutes they go off and do a tour. But I just wanted to amble around myself. I've been there once or twice as a kid. I sort of knew bits, and I still remembered bits. And there was only sort of certain things I was particularly interested in seeing. So yeah, I just went off on my own and had a slow walk around. Always find the gravestones and the plaques and everything very interesting to see who's buried there. Winchester Cathedral is a bit of a funny one. So if you don't know, Winchester was basically the capital of Wessex, which before England became England was one of the regions, kingdoms that went on to form England. After England was formed, Winchester stayed the seat of the king for a while, up until William II, I think it was, son of William the Conqueror. I'm trying to remember now. It's certainly around that time that they then moved to London. So there's various kings buried there, lots of obviously bishops, things like that. But sort of the most famous people who are buried there are Isaac Walton, who's sort of the godfather of British fishing. He wrote The Complete Angler, which is a very famous book about angling. St Swithin is interred there. He was originally buried outside, then they moved him in, and on the day that they moved him in, it rained, and then it's rained for 40 days, and that's sort of led to the myth that if it rains on St Swithin's Day, it will rain for 40 days and 40 nights. And then probably the most famous person buried there is Jane Austen. And there's, she's got her own window, and stained glass window, and a couple of a brass plaque and another plaque, and plus the tombstone, of course. But tombstone makes no mention of the fact that she was a well-known author. It's just, daughter of blah-de-blah-de-blah. It was only much later that they put something up to sort of explain who she actually was. So those, looking out for those bits was interesting. But other than that, there's lots of pretty chapels with, ornate ceilings and things like that, and all the sort of stuff you get in cathedrals. But it's not an overly, it's not like Westminster Abbey and Westminster Cathedral where there's lots to see and lots of famous people buried there and stuff like that. But I needed a bit of quiet time, and I was just wandering around, as I say, and just enjoying the peace of it, apart from the scurrying school kids being taught by their, I say school kids, they were late teens probably, being taught by their teacher and what have you. But then on the, I think it was the south, can't remember the word for it anyway. On one side of it anyway, they had a little exhibition, and at the top of it, it was all about the history of the cathedral, the kings and queens who worked there, and how the cathedral sort of developed over that time, and then the building of the cathedral and the ransacking of the cathedral and stuff they found subsequently and all that sort of stuff, which is all interesting. Then he went down to, I've got a library from the 1400s, I think it is, full of really old books, which, I poked my head in, and it was a load of really old books with titles in Latin, and that was about all there was to see, really. Smelt quite nice because of all the leather. Then there's an exhibition about the Bible. No interest to me. It's just a book. And monastery life as well, which again I just sort of glanced at, but didn't overly interest me. But the top bit was interesting. And just wandered down and out. Probably spent about an hour in there, I suppose. Oh, there was one other bit just after you go in. There's a little spirally staircase bit, which I braved because I don't like spiral staircases, but I did it. That had the treasury, and they had loads of gold and silver chalices and stuff in there, which was gold and silver chalices. It was all right. Went over to the gift shop, had a look round, bought some chockies to take into work when I go back to work. And Willow's coming in again. Hi, darling. Yeah? What? There's not really any room up there. Should I make room? There you go. Bought some jockeys to take to work when I go back. And then wandered up sort of the other end, back towards where my car was, where the Great Hall is. So, Great Hall was part of Winchester Castle, but all that exists now is a Great Hall, pretty much, of that, for various reasons, which I sort of read about and promptly forgot. But it's sort of most well known. What are you doing, cat? It's probably most well known because it contains King Arthur's Round Table. It doesn't. it doesn't, because that's just myth. So 1976, I think it was, they actually took some of the wood from the table to carbon date it and what have you, and it actually dates from around, I think it was between 1250 and 1300, which ties in with 1280. They did major renovations of the Great Hall, so I think it was made for that. And then it was painted in King Henry VIII's time, and he pictured, it's got a Tudor rose in the middle. I just remembered I took photos of this, so I'll show you in a second. Portrait of a king who is almost certainly King Henry VIII at the centre of it, and then the name of his knights around the outside, 24 of them I think it is. But that's interesting to see. Yeah, here's the pictures. I couldn't take any pictures in the cathedral. Most of it had no photo signs anyway, and there wasn't really anything that I particularly wanted to take photos of. But you could take them in City Hall, Grand Hall, whatever it's called. I've forgotten what I called it now, but that place. Other than that, it's not a huge amount to see there. It was only £4 to go in there, which was a bit more civilised. There's a pair of iron gates that were made to commemorate Charles and Diana's wedding in 1981, which was quite interesting. They weren't completed until it must have been at least 82, because the key they made to it is in the shape of a W for William, so it must have been after he was born. There's a nice little medieval garden, which is quite calming and pleasant. Had a little wander around that. It's not massive though. It only took a couple of minutes to wander around. There's a nice fountain and, you know, running water through it, which is I always like in a garden. There's a big, you might be able to see it, I can't remember without seeing the photo in front of me. You might be able to see it in the photos I took, but there's a big gold bronze statue of Queen Victoria, made to commemorate her, I think it was Diamond Jubilee, which is impressive and interesting. But that's sort of about it, and some nice stained glass windows again. And then up above is the long gallery, where it's loads of pictures and information about the hall itself and the castle, and then sort of Winchester and the history of Winchester, which is quite interesting. So yeah, that was the touristy bits. By then it was about 4:15, and so I thought, oh, it's about time I ate. So I wandered back along the high street, looking at the various eateries, trying to decide what to have. Decided I fancied Italian, so it was a choice between Ask Italian and ZZ's. I looked at the menus, decided on Ask Italian. Went in there, had a very nice meal, bruschetta, linguine carbonara and a Sicilian lemon tart with a raspberry still lemonade and then a hot chocolate, in case you're interested. But yes, very nice, good service, reasonably priced. Yeah, did me well. Then it was sort of, by the time I went out of there and wandered back to the car, it was sort of just before 6 o'clock. And my thought was, show started at 7:30. I had to pick up my ticket, which I knew wouldn't take long, but I wanted to sort of get it done and out of the way. So I wandered, it was about a 5-minute walk from the car park to the theatre, wandered up to the theatre about 6:30, and for about half hour in between, I just sat in the car playing on my phone. Went in, collected my tickets, no problem. I knew where to go because I'd had to do it on a previous show. It's not the main box office you go to. They have a lady with a table. Picked up my ticket. Was surprised there was no merch, because he's been writing a programme, but I'm guessing that they haven't got them done in time for the tour. Grabbed a bottle. I was going to say a bottle of water. It's not a bottle of water. It was a can of water. Had a wee. Sat in the bar until 7. When the doors were sort of due to open, so I wandered back round to the doors, and about 30 seconds after I got there, the doors opened. So I went in and grabbed my seat and listened to the very good selection of pre-show music that Danny had selected. Beatles were playing when I went into Max Bygraves, which went into Frank Zappa, which went into... I can't remember the exact order from then on, but we had Hole in the Ground, Bernard Cribbins. We had Simon Smith and His Amazing Dancing Bear, Alan Price. We had Hollies, I think it was, or the Mersey Beats, I think it was, and a couple of other tracks as well. But it was just a really nice mixture of tracks. And Danny came on about 7:30. So if you don't know Danny Baker, if you're not from the UK or you're not overly familiar, Danny Baker has had a very interesting career, and it's sort of hard to describe. I suppose you just call him a presenter, but he left school at 14 and started working in a record shop in central London, but was frequented by Elton John, Mark Bolan, Mick Jagger, that sort of crowd. Worked there for years. The record shop ended up closing, mainly because they were fiddling with tills. He was sort of at a loose end. He was just selling all these records that he'd borrowed from a record shop to make ends meet, when his friend from school, Mark Perry, came up to him and started telling him about this punk scene he was involved in and how he wanted to start a fanzine, and he knew that Danny's sister had a typewriter, so could he help? And that fanzine was Sniffing Glue, which you may be aware of, but it was the punk fanzine. That sort of made them well known, and they were always being interviewed. They were sort of go-to interviewees about the punk scene. But after 12 issues, Mark decided to fold it, and Danny again was at a loose end when he got a phone call from Janet Street Porter, who is a London-based journalist and TV presenter, to say that she'd been charged with starting a new show and she wanted Danny to present it. He'd never done anything like that before, but he said, yeah, why not? That led on to more TV work in London, which eventually led on to TV work that was broadcast across the whole country. And he quickly became a household name, especially through some adverts he was doing for Mars and Daz, and in various shows that he presented. He then accidentally became, in between, sorry, I missed a chunk there, but in between Sniffing Glue and the TV work, why I missed this, I don't know, he worked for the NME. Basically, he knew somebody who worked there, managed to get a job on reception, started writing, eventually just became part of the staff, writing staff. So he'd been writing for the NME. He fell onto the radio. He'd never listened to radio as a kid, didn't really know what presenting a radio show involved, but was offered a position. He was desperate for money, offered a show on BBC Radio London, which he accepted because he had no other option really, and didn't know how to work a desk and everything. Was introduced to this producer who turned out to be Chris Evans, a very young Chris Evans, the British Chris Evans, not the Captain America Chris Evans, obviously. And his radio shows are unique, although they're much mimicked now. But he would literally just take in a box full of records and play whatever he wanted, first of all, rather than being on a playlist or anything like that. But he does phone-ins, or he did phone-ins, but they weren't your generic, what do you think of the situation in Syria or anything like that. It was, who can name all the cars and drivers in wacky races? What's the third line of the theme tune to Top Cat? What's ever been glued to your grandmother? How nuts is your mum? Stuff like that. But you get interesting phone calls from, rather than just people moaning and ranting. he done sports journalism, well, not journalism, but presented sports-based shows, football-based shows as well. Had a long and interesting career anyway. So that's who Danny Baker is. He wrote his autobiography 6-7 years ago now, the first volume of it, and he went out on the tour as a result of that. And the idea was he would just talk about his life, and it was just going to be one tour, and then he was going to retire, and that was it. So I'd say he was meant to talk about his life. The first tour, the shows were 2.5 to 3 hours long. He got as far as leaving home. He had so many stories about growing up, particularly about his father, Spud. But the shows just got longer and longer. So the retirement never happened. He did a second tour, and that was covering the sort of the rock and roll years. And the average show there, the one I saw in Southampton, was over 4 hours long. COVID, of course, delayed everything, but now we've got the third tour, which is sort of covering the radio and TV years. So he came on at 7:30 and sort of, told what was going to be happening. But as he did on the second tour, he wanted to start the tour by sort of making sure everybody was up to date, knew who everybody he would be talking about was, his father, his family, things like that. So the whole 90-minute first half of the show was basically him bringing everybody up to date with the first and second shows, but with largely new stories. There's a few that I already knew, a few he told on a previous tour, a few that he's talked about elsewhere in volumes of his autobiography or on the radio or what have you, in interviews. So I did know quite a lot of what he was talking about, but there was always moments that were new to me, or brand new stories that I hadn't heard, or extensions to stories. So that was the first half. After 90 minutes, he still hadn't completed what was technically the first half of the show, but he called the interval there anyway. We had the interval, came back on, then spent the next 20-25 minutes finishing the first half of the show, which was fine. And, it was a lot of fun and lots of laughter, but it did mean that the stories that should have comprised the second half of the show, because he's trying to keep the shows under 3 hours, he had to sort of race through and skip through some of them. So he had photos up on a screen that would sort of prompt the stories. And a few times, the photo would come up and he said, yeah, you all know about that, skip that. And so, which was a bit of a shame. But it does mean he sort of hinted that he is going to have to do another tour to sort of catch up. Whereas he was talking about retiring after this tour. We'll see what happens. But yeah, lots of interesting stories once he did get onto the newer stuff, the TV stuff and things like that. Talking about his This Is Your Life that he was on. Talking about being in the Jungle on I'm a Celebrity and what goes on behind the scenes there. His chat show, Win, Lose or Draw, Give Us a Clue. All sorts of stuff he's done, either presented or just appeared on. His radio career as well. Really interesting, lots of laughter. Really enjoyable night. He ended up doing 3 hours and 10 minutes, which wasn't bad at all. Well worth the money. Then I headed home. So there you go. I had to do this in 2 parts, and this second part is half an hour, so we're probably pushing an hour, I should imagine. So I apologise for that. But I hope you found it interesting. Thank you for watching. Like, comment and subscribe, and I'll see you in another video. Thanks. Bye.